Hello, everybody. It's Beatles Anthology season, and therefore, a couple of months ago, I was getting ready for it. I was going through some boxes of old Beatles stuff, and at the bottom of one of the boxes, I found this magazine from December of 1995. It's a Bay Area music magazine, one of those freebie things, and I don't even remember picking this up. So it was a nice surprise that I found this. It's like a time capsule. And it has a lot of pictures of artists from 1995, advertisements, concert dates and everything. And it's also got a great article in here by Jerry McCauley. He's also written for Rolling Stone magazine. And Jerry's writing about the Beatles and their fame, how they got there, how influential they were, how important they were to music. And he obviously loves the Beatles. But he's also questioning, do we or don't we need an anthology? Should we even be talking about this right now? And he doesn't really answer the question, but he's posing the question and kind of yeah, they're important, but what is the purpose here? And I guess that was a prevailing attitude or sentiment back in 1995 because, I've watched those press conferences that George Martin, Jeff Lynne, Derek Taylor, and Neil Aspinall were at when they were out promoting the anthology and Freeze a Bird in 1995. And all the reporters, most of them were saying, what's the big deal? What are we doing here? Why is this important? It's just a pop group. And basically, George Martin had to pick everybody up by the scruff of their neck and say, hey, man, this was the Beatles. They were huge. They changed everything. This is important. This is history. And this is why we're doing this. Okay, guys?
When you add up the amount of joy that those four Beatles have given the world every day of every month of every year since 1962, that I think you can take seriously. I think it's great.
This guy's also is very emphatic as well. And he's even, because, this is a magazine, it's rock and roll stuff here, he's even more raw, more nitty gritty here. And it really packs a punch here when he talks about, the price that the Beatles paid. And he's actually asking the question, I think mainly because, he's seen the anthology. And when he's watching it, he's going, oh my God, something is missing here. Because he sees Paul, George, and Ringo, but he's not seeing John. And that really gets him. And he's like, it's just not the same, and I can't watch it. And I'm sitting there and I'm feeling that. And I'm going, oh my God. Because you know what? That's exactly what it was like seeing Anthology the first time. And it's probably going to be just like that again. And it was very similar when Now and Then came out. I really was missing George. And so you do have a lot of ambivalence with the anthology. This is the sentiment here in this article, but definitely in more raw terms. And he begins the article, with these two quotes. I don't believe in Beatles. I just believe in me. That's John Lennon from the song God in 1970. Whatever happened to the life that we once knew, Paul McCartney, Freeze a Bird, 1995. Now that kind of shows you what I'm talking about here with this article. It's the juxtaposition, the ambivalence here. It's yes, we love this. Yes, they were important. Yes, this is hard, but do we need it? Yeah, I want to see it. No, I don't want to see it. It's just I don't believe in Beatles, but yeah, whatever happened to that? And he really understands the Beatles, and he understands the importance and how even the Beatles didn't know what was happening. It just kind of overtook them. By little more than the force of their art and personalities, the Beatles became the focus of a collective public dream, a perhaps equally naive belief that cultural and political monoliths could change, that one's life did matter, that history is not preordained, and that miraculously the transmogrified beat music of four reformed Liverpudlian scruffs was somehow key to it all. So he's saying that these guys, they had no idea what they were doing. Obviously, it just kind of happened. And it happened because it was John, Paul, George, and Ringo, just their personalities getting together. They only wanted to make a record, and then all of this happened. And it was just, again, very naive. And they just kept on going and going. What else can we do? What else can we do? Until they figured, I guess we've done it all and we want to go do this over here. It's that long and winding road. And that long and winding road, the Beatles, that's what they talked about, beginning as early as like 1970. They said, this is a project that we're working on to tell our story. That, this is important to us. This is what we went through. This is the price that we paid. We were humiliated. We had to do all these things that we didn't want to do. The press was tearing us apart. It was like crazy. It was awful. And so they just had to stick together, to kind of go through it just to survive, and they survived up till 1970, but, they didn't survive. Okay, John did not survive. And I know I'm getting a little bit dark there, but he talks about that in this article here, the price that they paid, for everything. And even after that happened, it was still important to them. So in 1995, they said, okay, this is hard for us. We got to do it. John's not here. We just got to tell ourselves that, we just got to tell ourselves that John just isn't here. He's out for tea or something. Because this is important. This is our story, and we're going to tell it in our own words. Nobody else owns us. Nobody else is our boss. Nobody knows what we went through. This is the price that we paid. Everybody has all these expectations on us. So here we go. This is it, and this is what we're doing. And they spent all that time, like 25 years, putting it together, suffering, broken hearts, broken lives, broken dreams, just all these bodies along the way. It wasn't easy. Yeah. They got a lot of fame and fortune and all that, but at what cost? They lost a lot in their lives. They didn't really have lives after that. No personal lives. Everybody telling lies about them, etc. Everybody else telling their story. This one reporter wrote a fake story about Paul. And what Paul decided to do was mail this author a little bit of Stella's baby poo. Said, this is what I think of your fake news. Okay. They said, nope, we're telling our story. This is it. It's important to us. So yes, there they are in 1995. They're telling a story because it's important to them. And we're willing to kind of put everything else aside because this is us and this is our story and we're doing it. And yeah, maybe we might be doing it for money too, but it's our story and we're going to take charge and we're just going to put our heartache and everything else away and do this and kind of make sure that our legacy is told by us and by nobody else. Like I was listening to a Ringo interview from 1989, and he was going to take the go on tour with his All-Stars for the very first time. And the interviewer, the host, was saying, okay, what about the other guys or anybody, Paul and George, they're going to join you? And Ringo says, you know what? I don't know, man. If you get a couple, 3 people out there, people might think it's a Beatles reunion. I don't want to do that. How do you live up to that?
Once we start, there's 2 or 3 of us, it's not a band anymore. It's like Beatle reunion, and it's not that.
So that was their sentiment. It was like they were afraid to go back there to kind of recreate that. That was hard. It was hard to live up to that because they were probably looking at like what George always said, like that happened. That was like somebody else did that, not me. And so that must have been hugely difficult for Paul, George, and Ringo in 1995 to tell that story because they had to get together, -1. And to do something that they never wanted to do, really, which was get back together and try to create something to live up to the Beatles' legacy. So this obviously was very important to them to risk that, to take the chance, and to put that above everything else, that their legacy. They wanted to do right by their legacy, right by their story. They did not set out to change the world, to change music, to change history, but you know what? That's what happened. And they had to say, you know what, we did this, and I guess maybe we owe it to everybody, but we kind of owe it to ourselves maybe. I mean, that's a heavy burden. And that's what he's talking about here. So obviously this author, he loves the Beatles. He gets it. He's seen it up close. And he also talks about what they gave us, because he says the Beatles were for everybody. The Beatles, even at the dizzying height of their fame, managed to not only retain their populist working class roots, but to extend the philosophy that it engendered to a mass audience. The Fabs blithely, if naively, insisted that ballet, fine art, avant-garde cinema, modern dance, and the symphony were every person's birthright, not just that of the privileged elite. The argument can be made that no one, with the possible exception of Leonard Bernstein, has done more in the last 30 years, 60 years now, to make high culture, the province of true elitists, prior to flannel and body piercings, accessible, indeed even attractive to the masses. And he goes on to say the Fabs suffered for their art. Now it's your turn. And by that he means he's talking to all the other artists. It's your turn to suffer. They did their part. Let's see what you can do. And yeah, the Beatles, they did suffer. John, Paul, George, and Ringo, absolutely they suffered. And I think it was his writing, the way he told the story, that really got to me. That reminded me, yeah, they suffered. And that they deserve to tell the story their way. That they deserve to take ownership, of their story, of that long and winding road, because of the price that they paid along the way. And I do love them telling their story. I love hearing Paul tell his stories again and again, and Ringo too. And, I will miss John just like this author, miss John. There's definitely something missing. I'm going to miss George, as well. It would be wonderful if we could hear John and George retelling their stories again and again, just like we hear Paul and Ringo. It's something to be treasured and cherished. So yeah, we do need a Beatles anthology. Not just for us, but because that's what they want. They want to tell the story. It's their legacy. And if they want to tell me that story, I'm going to listen. Thanks so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate it. And until next time, peace and love one another. Take care.
Beatles is Beatles are Beatle. In the end, it's like, oh, sod off with the Beatles,